guys, you've heard of the yellow vest movement? Well, I guess this is my yellow bridge moment. I live in Pittsburgh now, so this is one of many yellow bridges. I don't know the name of it. I haven't gotten that far yet, but I wanted to just jump on in here and talk a little bit about some of the things that happens when you are sort of a frog boiling in water. So frogs, when they are boiling in water, they don't realize that they're actually boiling in water. They don't actually realize what's happening until it's too late, until they die. So I wanted to talk about some of the things that go on in this society of ours and in this current dynamic that we're living in. There are a lot of different subject matters that we could address. But I think what I want to talk about first is something I don't hear the anarchist community talking about a whole lot, and it's what's going on in our skies. So right now, the sky's pretty blue with some normal-looking clouds in it. But I suspect that tomorrow or maybe the next day we'll get that strange film, that strange hazy look that covers the blue sky and kind of turns the sun this sort of gray orb. And that is what's called cloud seeding. Some people in certain communities call it chemtrails, and I don't like that term because chemtrails leads to the type of people that might believe in baby-eating Luciferians that are running the show or running this country, and I don't necessarily believe in that. I believe everything can be blamed on capitalism, to be honest. I think that is the real underlying force that moves our economy, moves our ecology, it moves our social situations that we're in, it moves our politics. Capitalism. And so capitalism is also part of what's going on in our skies. So we know that Carnegie Mellon University, as well as David Keith, who is spearheading a program out of Harvard University, and also the Bill Gates Foundation, is working on something called stratospheric aerosol injections. And we have former, I believe he was the National Security Advisor, John Brennan. We have him on record addressing the Council of Foreign Relations.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. An SAI program could limit global temperature increases, reducing some risks associated with higher temperatures and providing the world economy additional time to transition from fossil fuels.
So these are actual things that are going on in the scientific community. They're being funded very heavily, and nobody's talking about it. And of course, mainstream state-backed media like MSNBC or CNN and all that, they're not talking about it. But you do have certain people out there that are talking about it, and they bring a lot of important information to the table, and I really respect their work. So that's an example of what's going on in our skies. I want you to actually, if you could, take 1 week of your life. And I'm starting today, why not, May 1st. Oh, happy May Day, by the way. International Workers Unite, of course. I'm taking May 1st, and I'm gonna do a couple of shots of the sky. And you'll see that on May 1st, it's it's a beautiful blue sky. You can hear the birds in the background and the insects going at it. It's a really nice day out. It's supposed to get up to the 80s, which is fantastic. So what we have with this is why are they doing it? Well, it goes back to this idea that our house is on fire. This is kind of this inflamed rhetoric that often you hear in certain from certain politicians and certain leaders of state. For instance, back in the Reagan administration, you heard things like the war on drugs. We have to go after the war on drugs, as if drugs were actually committing war against us. And so this gave rise to eventually the crime bill, which Bill Clinton passed in the 90s, which gave us the largest the wonderful, esteemed position of the most incarcerated nation on the planet. So this type of inflamed rhetoric, the war on terror, you can't wage war on a feeling. It's like a war on a feeling. Well, this is the same thing with what's going on in the green movement, is that we are our own worst enemies, and that through our own selfishness and our own lack of understanding about the ecology and the balance of nature and weather and all that, that our house is on fire, and it's a war, it's a war of the planet. And so we have to do everything we can, like stop drinking out of plastic straws, in order to combat something called climate change or climate collapse. And so this kind of inflamed rhetoric is tossed around in these various NGOs and nonprofit organizations that fund the idea that we're in the midst of climate collapse and in the midst of the sixth great mass extinction. So these are really inflamed, amped up, highly emotionally manipulative messages that are sent out to us. And so I encourage you for the next 7 days to take a picture of your sky and see what it looks like today, and then do it for 7 days and see if you can go 7 days with clear blue skies. Now, if you can, then that's great. Maybe the cloud seeding program and the stratospheric aerosol injections, maybe they aren't part of where you live, wherever you live. But I noticed that for me, whether I lived in San Francisco, which is where I recently moved from, or I live here in Pittsburgh, which is where I live now, that every day there's some kind of, something going on with the skies. And you'll see like different types of clouds that don't look natural. Big white fluffy clouds are there. They may be the natural clouds, and then you'll see really strange sort of skipping looking clouds. So I think that that's one thing that we want to think about. And so I believe that the thing that brings life and growth to the planet is sun, probably even more than water. And that you absolutely need to have sun in order for trees to grow, in order for the things that you put in the ground to bloom, whether it's vegetables or flowers, that the earth needs the sun, and that it's a symbiotic, actually it's not a symbiotic relationship at all. The sun gives life to the earth. And so to block out the sun, that is going to ultimately affect what grows on the planet, from food sources, vegetables that may grow out of the earth, to necessary vegetation to bring forth life and ecology and keep that natural balance that's going on in nature right now. So, these programs that are in place that are blocking out the sun, if the sun brings life, and if the sun is the thing that the planet needs in order to survive, then why would you ever want to block that out? So there are all sorts of theories, there are all sorts of discussions about why these heavily funded organizations would want to block out the sun. Who benefits from sun blockage? Who benefits from that? I certainly don't. I need the sun to survive. All of the gardens that we're planting and planning on planting need the sun to survive and grow and bring forth, vegetation. So who benefits from the blocking out of the sun? And that's probably a rhetorical question that I can just put out there. I'm not in the habit of trying to get into the mind of those that control our, the mechanisms of our country and our ecology and all that. I can't begin to even think about what their goals are. I can surely venture to guess that through lack of food production comes a desperate society, and what does a desperate society bring forth? Well, lots of trauma and hunger and a larger refugee crisis. So some of these things need to be talked about. I would say that, not enough people are talking about it right now, but more and more people will be talking about it. And so when you think about what it means to be a frog in boiling water, you don't know these things are happening. You don't realize that you're sitting in this pot of boiling water, and you may look up at the sky and go, man, I haven't seen blue skies in like a week. What the hell's going on? And then not think about it anymore. And then just go about your day and go about your life and all the things that you need to do to live your life. So that's kind of like the frog in boiling water scenario, where you just have too many things going on, and so they keep you distracted with everything, So another process of like the frog boiling water. So that has to do with the skies. There are other ways that that you're kind of boiling in water, and that it's probably not a good scene when practically every day or every other day, at least once a week, but at this point it seems like every other day, there's some kind of shooting, whether it's at a school or a synagogue or a church. There's some kind of shooting, and there's always, some terrible thing involving it. And lately it's been about manifestos. The last two people that have been accused of orchestrating these events have had manifestos on their person, and so the media has said, well, they said in this manifesto that this happened, and in that manifesto they believed this. And so and what it does is as you're sitting there, the frog in boiling water, you're not looking at like the larger picture. You're not looking at how this type of revelation about what's in the manifesto may be working on people's psyche a little bit. Like, oh man, he wrote that in the manifesto. Well, I thought that once. Am I a bad guy now? So people start to second guess their own motives. They start to second guess who they are, and so that's the plan. That's what they want you to do. They want you to always feel sort of on edge. Like they want you to edit yourself and censor yourself. And when I say they, I mean the state. I would say the single most threatening position that the state feels that you take against them is when you call them out on their bullshit, when you call them out on their capitalist focus, when you call them out on capitalism and how they want to basically enslave us all. Another thing that, when you're that frog in boiling water and you kind of don't realize, what's going on is with social media. Social media has many different layers, but, ultimately social media puts us on a slave grid, and you are part of the process that mines the little gold nuggets that are coming out of that plantation. Think of miners when they first were mining this country for silver and gold, and they were tearing up the earth to pull out these beautiful nuggets of value, which represented everything to them. It represented great wealth. Well, this is how the state and the various social media platforms, from Facebook to Twitter to Instagram to all that, this is how they treat you as an individual. You are the thing that they are mining, and within you is something very unique. And so they want to pull that out of you, and then they will sell it to various markets throughout the globe and make money off of that, just like they mined gold. So, we have to start thinking about ourselves as having little gold nuggets inside of us, and how we can keep those gold nuggets for ourselves and share them with who we feel we want to. So, and we know that within every one of these social media platforms, there are, CIA, I don't want to call them CIA agents, but they're CIA employees. I mean, every single one of them is co-opted by the state. Why do you think that in the Obama administration there were almost 500 visits to the White House from Silicon Valley? And the same with the Trump administration. Why do you think Jack Dorsey, of the CEO of Twitter, just recently went to the White House to see Trump? This is part of the deal. This is like, okay, we want to go into this next phase of surveillance capitalism. Can we get the go-ahead? Can we get the green light to do that? I'm getting pressure from my CIA-funded employees to go to this next level. And so, the administration will fast-track that or give it the green light to do that. And so this is more and more of co-opting your individuality, co-opting that, like I said, that precious little gold nugget that's inside of you, and turning it into a behavioral futures market. And you are the tool that's being used to mine what's ever inside of you. And social media is the tool that's being used to mine what's inside of you. It's kind of complicated, but not if you think about it in terms of back when our country was first being discovered and there were miners mining the earth for gold. Well, it's the same kind of concept. I would say that when it comes to lifting up heroes, when it comes to lifting up individuals in society, and this kind of segues into my next point about a frog boiling in water. Once a frog realizes that they're about ready to die, and once the water has gotten to the point where it's boiled them nearly to death, they're thinking of who's going to rescue them, who's going to reach in and pull them out of the boiling water. And so they're looking for a hero. And Edward Snowden was considered a hero to many. Julian Assange is considered a hero to many. And as anarchists, we don't believe in the hero concept. No gods, no heroes, no masters, no hierarchy, nothing like that. We're collectives, and we look to each other for help and advice. And so, specifically, I wanted to talk about Edward Snowden. If you don't know who he is, he was the guy who exposed the fact that the National Security Agency and all of its attached apparatus was violating our Fourth Amendment right to privacy and spying on us. And he's a hero. And that our government was so angered by this, they wanted to extradite him and throw him in Guantanamo Bay or something like that. And so what he did was he was able to escape, and now he has asylum in Russia. Okay, so that's who he is. I believe that Edward Snowden is a concept. Okay, Edward Snowden, somebody like Edward Snowden was needed in order to hand over our privacy rights to various social media apparatus like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all of them. Because now that it's been exposed that the NSA has been spying on us illegally and consuming and collecting our data and violating our Fourth Amendment rights of privacy, now that that's been established, they're going to then move that same kind of action over into social media, which is run by private corporations, which have every right to violate our Fourth Amendment rights to privacy. So I hope that makes sense, that I don't feel that Edward Snowden is the hero that everybody thinks he is that we still have a terrible violation of our Fourth Amendment right to privacy. It's just we don't hear about it anymore because we're all giving it away for free on social media. And there are state agents within each platform that continue to go to the White House and request that they go to the next level. So, and this ties into, once again, it also ties into something else. So you got to think of it sort of like a Venn diagram where everything is like looped together and they all have these relatable causes and relatable agendas. So in this Venn diagram, you've got the national security state, which then is, part of the National Defense Authorization Act, where Barack Obama passed it and said, or he authorized it and basically said that the state can now target and assassinate American citizens without due process. Okay, so that's like very extreme language, and it's supposed to be meant for like American citizens who have a history of terrorism, who have somehow through whatever corrupt system have now become American citizens when they never should have. No, you think to yourself, oh well, that really sort of heightened National Defense Authorization Act language, that really just applies to them. That doesn't apply to me. Well, I would beg to differ. And I'm not an alarmist. I'm not going to scream, oh my God, it's militia, the end of the world, and all that stuff. No, I'm just here to offer the information, and then you can do with it whatever you want. So we do have this process that's going on right now. And and I don't pretend to be a psychologist or anything like that, but it's sort of what I call the frog boiling in water syndrome. It's where we don't realize it until it's too late. And speaking of psychology, some people are moving forward into this language. Some people who are really popular, like on YouTube, are really moving forward into like the language of narcissism, and not that they are narcissists, but that they're calling out narcissistic personality disorder. They're calling out, the psychopathy that tends to run rampant in society. I guess the statistic is that 1 out of every 20 people is a sociopath, and how the various heads of state that are in place, from Nancy Pelosi to Kamala Harris to Cory Booker to Donald Trump to Lindsey Graham to whoever, they all have sociopathic tendencies. They all are working for their own personal agenda, and they're having fun kind of fucking with us while they do it. And some people who have multiple psychology degrees and have had their own practices and have they don't like it when us common people who don't have this benefit of an education behind them, they don't like it when we start to diagnose our surroundings. And what I would say is too bad. Right now we're in a place where we have to start to diagnose what's going on. We have to call it out. We have to call out the sociopathy. We have to be able to identify it, whether we're in a corporate structure. We have to be able to identify it within our own family dynamic. We have to be able to diagnose it, especially in the state. So I would say that you might get some pushback when you start talking in this sort of armchair psychological language, where you start to break things down and understand why people do what they do. It's actually really important for you to understand why people do what they do. That's actually really important. So it helps you grow, and it will help you prepare for whatever comes next. So again, this has been sort of my yellow bridge moment, and I'm talking about the frog boiling in water syndrome or scenario, and those are some examples. Those few things that I just talked about today are some of the examples of a frog boiling in water. All right, thanks for listening, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you later. Oh, and please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the like button if you'd like. I'm not in the habit. It's really difficult for me to ask for people to do things. I don't like asking help from anyone. So this is a brand new territory for me. But I do know that YouTube has created a new censorship policy where only people who have 1,000 subscribers can go live. I would have loved to have gone live doing this video and you know, and just post it right away, but instead I have to pre-record it and then load it. So if you feel like subscribing, that would be amazing. So have a great day, and we'll put our website and our support page in the link of the, or we'll link it up in the description of this video. All right, you guys, thanks for tuning in. Bye.